Hey, friends, welcome to the third episode of Some Thoughts to Myself Out Loud. I'm Joe Felly. I'll be your host today. I'm glad you're here. Whether you're driving or walking or working or just catching a breath, I want this time to feel like a conversation between friends. Just a time set aside for me to share some thoughts to myself out loud. Today's episode is a blend of truth and encouragement and a few stories that carry deeper meaning than what's on the surface. So let's settle in, okay? Let's get started. Now, normally, I like to start off the show with some encouragement. So let me begin by saying something simple but powerful. Remember the value of connections because we live in a world that's louder than ever. I mean, louder than ever. Notifications and headlines and opinions that are flying at us from every direction, right? But sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to pause and look someone in the eye and give them just acknowledgement of being them. Just give them a connection that goes beyond the politics, goes beyond the media, goes beyond the normal, right? A connection that says, "Hey, I've been where you're at, and I feel you. I've been where you're at, and I'm praying for you. I'm thinking of you, and you can do this." I remember a moment a few years back. I was still in uniform, and I was walking around town and just grabbing some coffee or something, I think some lunch. But before heading back to base, I was just walking through there, and a little boy had saw me, and he started tugging on his mom's sleeve and pointed at me. And of course, I thought, maybe there was something wrong with my uniform or something. But she walked over and she said, he just wanted to say thank you. Now, that moment didn't make the news. It didn't make, TikTok or trend on social media, but it did stay with me. And it stayed with me because it reminded me that connection doesn't require a platform. Okay. It requires presence. It requires being there. Maybe it's the delivery driver or the mail person, who's running all day with packages and mail and stuff. Or maybe it's the cashier who's just trying to get through a shift. Maybe it's your own child, waiting for you to notice the drawing they made. The thing is, people don't forget how you made them feel. Now, they might forget your words, your title, your credentials, but they might forget all that, but they'll remember the warmth you made them feel. They'll remember how comfortable you made them feel, the smile you put on their face, the experience it was to either see you or meet you or speak to you. They'll remember that over. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So today I'm inviting you to be that kind of person, the one that slows down, the one who sees, the one who chooses connection over convenience. Because listen, let's be honest. In a world that's often divided, genuine connection is quite kind of a rebellion. We have, I've mentioned this before, but we have an encouragement group on Facebook called the Encouragement Community. And one of the things that we have there, our motto, our saying is it's a rebellion against division and hatefulness and anger. And so I'm a rebel. I am an encourager. And so that's the way we need to be today. Make a connection with somebody, not for any other, not just the people. Listen, and here's the deal. Just don't try to connect with the people that you quote unquote normally would connect with. This is an opportunity to connect with a stranger, to connect with somebody that normally maybe sees outside the way you would see, or maybe somebody you wouldn't normally associate with. And now I'm not telling you to go out and buy them lunch and you can, but all I'm saying is make a connection, smile, say hello, and you'd be floored to know how much just a kind gesture like a smile can change somebody's life. Amen. So now before we shift gears, I want to pause and clear the air on something that I saw yesterday. And I guess it's been floating around, and because once I started looking it up, I saw that it's been around longer than yesterday. But it's this thing, and it was quite weird. It says breaking news, and gets you all worried, and has that kind of feel to it. Please, if you're somebody that's trying to guard your emotions and guard what you put yourself into, be careful of videos like that. okay? Because I'm telling you, most 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be something discouraging. They're gonna be something to get you off balance, okay? But listen, there's been talk lately about TikTok being bought out and renamed MAGA Talk and turned into some kind of political, platform. Let's take a break, right? Because as soon as I found this, as soon as I saw this video, I looked it up. I had to look it up. So you do the same as well, okay? And I'm not talking about looking at your, at your the source that comforts or source that backs your political ideology. I'm talking about actual facts. Look for the facts in this, and that's what I try to do, okay? So here's what's real. Here's what here's what I found was real and not adding to anything, not taking away it, just flat out, this is what's real. And that is TikTok US operations are being restructured. Okay. American investors are stepping in and they're going to take majority ownership of TikTok here in the States. And companies like a company named Oracle, I believe it's Oracle, and they're going to help oversee now all they're going to do is help oversee the data security and algorithm integrity. Okay. This is more about national safety than it is about censorship. So this video telling you, oh, you're not going to be able to do your TikTok dances and you're not going to be able to, do anything out of the line that listen, that's not the case. That's not the case according to the reports they're giving, okay? Here's what's real though. The government isn't approving posts before they go live. They're not going to be censoring what you're doing. They're not going to be any more than TikTok normally did or social media normally did. They're not going to be doing that, okay? It didn't work for Zuckerberg. It's not going to work for TikTok, okay? There is just not happening. There's no official plan, okay, as far as I can see and I can tell and I looked, there's no official plan to rename TikTok MAGA Talk. Okay, so that's just absolute rumor and garbage. I mean, it might be satire, but let's be honest. Whoever started that knew what they were doing and they knew it was going to cause a problem. So satire or not, let's guard our hearts and guard our minds and make sure we look up that stuff because it's just not reality. All right. So what matters? So what matters to you, right? What matters is if you're using TikTok, you still have a voice. You still have freedom to create, share, and inspire just like you normally do. The algorithm's going to shift. It's going to change because it's in new hands. It changed the last time. Well, I've been with TikTok since 2021. And the algorithm setup has changed so much, you don't know what you're doing anymore. So it is going to shift, but moderation might tighten. But if your message is rooted in truth and rooted in kindness and purpose, it'll always be, it will always find a way. It will always make it. Okay. It will always make it. So please, and I'm saying this as a public service announcement, don't get freaked out. Okay. Don't let the overpassionate and the crusaders out there tear you into a frenzy, okay? Let's be people who ask good questions and check our sources and choose truth over trend, okay? Because you're not just growing, my friend, you're sowing, all right? And you're sowing seeds and you're making it count. And that, my friend, is what mattered, okay? And just stay in this political area for a second, and that I want to speak about in last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of turmoil over what freedom of speech is. And we've got one side that says, so one guy got killed over freedom of speech because they didn't like what he was saying. And then another guy gets, gets protected and prompted because he said something totally inappropriate, total lies, but he was able to say it because of freedom of that they feel or some feel because of freedom of speech. My point is that freedom of speech is often misunderstood. It's misused so much. People think, well, now there's so much to say too that I have freedom of speech, but you also have consequences. But we're not advocating violence. We're not advocating the loss of life or violence against because they took and exercised their freedom of speech. So I want to, and so it's being weaponized right now. and that's wrong. Okay. And so I want to get into that, but I want to approach it with grace because this isn't a judgmental show. This isn't a podcast where, I'm Joe Rogan and I'm going to be blasting my opinion and this and that. I'm going to try to keep my opinion as out of this as I can and try to give you facts. But that being said, the whole show is based off of some thoughts to myself out loud. So let's talk about freedom of speech. All right. And keeping in mind, I'm not here to correct anybody. I'm not here to stir anything up or stir up controversy. I just want to offer a perspective that I believe is rooted in grace and truth and responsibility. Because right now, it is being this freedom of speech is being thrown around without any kind of remorse, without any kind of, well, I've got a right. Well, listen now, you have a right, but you also have a responsibility, okay? Because we live in a country that celebrates freedom. I mean, we live in that country. We say we're free to speak our minds and to share our beliefs, to express our opinions. And let me tell you, that is a beautiful thing. I am so glad to be living in this country. But here's the catch. Freedom of speech isn't meant to be one-sided. Think about that for a moment. If freedom of speech was just freedom to say what everybody believes or what one person agrees with, then there would be no freedom. There would be no outside thinking. There would be no need. It doesn't make sense. The whole reason why we have freedom of speech is to protect different views. Hello. And to protect someone from being attacked or killed or imprisoned for speaking their mind against the government. Now, we can't claim freedom of speech for ourselves while denying it to somebody else because we don't like what they say or we don't agree with what they say. Friend, that's not freedom. That's selective listening. That's selective freedom. And I don't believe that's what our founding fathers had in mind. I just don't believe that when they laid the groundwork for this nation, that's what they were talking about. But I do know, I do feel that that what's going on today and what's being perceived as freedom of speech is not what what they had in mind. Okay. There's been more than violence. 2 or 3 in the last 2 weeks because somebody didn't like somebody else's views. So listen, true freedom means I can speak and so can you. All right. And if we disagree, we disagree. It means I can be offended, but I don't have to be offended on your behalf. And what that means is just because something that you don't like something or you don't agree with something or I've said something that you don't agree with doesn't mean and you're offended doesn't mean that I have to be offended too. It doesn't mean that, okay? So we have to go past that. And it means I can listen even when it's uncomfortable because that's how we grow. That's how we build bridges. Instead of walls, instead of violence. We listen instead of threaten, and we listen instead of hate. That doesn't mean we have to change our mind. See, that's just it. We go and we express our opinion. Listen, we express our opinion so that we can change somebody's mind. And that's not good. That is no bueno, I like to say. It's no good. When we express our opinions, we should be expressing our opinions in order to maybe educate or maybe fill in the gaps where somebody may not understand our thinking, our ideology, or how we feel about something. But once we share that, it should be good. It should be respected. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to agree, but this whole infighting, this whole idea that you have to believe the way I believe, or you're dead, or you're going to be hurt, or something's going to happen. It's absolutely inappropriate. It's not what freedom is. And we ought to check ourselves. And I'm gonna say this: I am not by any stretch of the imagination condoning this type of behavior. But if somebody is a racist, somebody doesn't like a certain, again, I'm not condoning that. But isn't that their right to be that way? If that's the way they think, there might be some that believe that. In a different religion, and there might be this and that. Isn't that what freedom of speech is? Now, we might not agree with it. We may not want to, okay, so it's okay to not agree with the way I agree. But when we start hurting each other because they don't agree with us, that's when it's an issue. Okay? Today, I'm inviting you to think about freedom not just as a right, but as a responsibility. And I hope that's what you're getting from this. I'm condoning free speech in a way that everybody has the right to say what's on their mind, some thoughts to themselves out loud. But hey, and we can talk about the consequences at another time, but at no point, if it's just words, at no point does it justify. So it's important to know that it's not just for ourselves, but it's for other people. Okay? Let's be people who protect our freedom of speech, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else. Let's be legacy builders who model grace, even when it's hard. That's the kind of freedom that lasts. That's the kind of freedom that makes America so great. And yes, I said it. I said it. America is great. The country I live in, I wouldn't turn, with all its problems, with all its shortcomings, with all its failures, I would not trade it for the world. Now let's shift gears. Let's get into something else other than politics. And it's been a great week for sports, right? You've got playoff wild card stuff happening in baseball. You got football just going on. This is the fourth week with exciting games coming in Indianapolis. The Colts are playing against, who are they playing against? I forgot. But that is going to be a game because both of them have, first of all, let's get into this. And this is off my script. But who in the world thought that Daniel Jones was going to be as good as he is? And it just goes to prove, and nothing against the New York Giants organization, but this just goes to prove, if you're not where you're supposed to be, here's a learning lesson. You won't be able to shine until you get to where you're supposed to be. You're in the right place. You're in the place that feeds you and makes you and allows you to shine. Okay? And oh my goodness, isn't that what's going on with Daniel Jones? I mean, Daniel Jones is just absolutely amazing. They're 3-0 if you haven't been following. Now, I'm not a Colts fan. I'm actually not a Colts fan. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, have been since 1977 during the days of the Steel Curtain. The Steel Curtain and, the likes like Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, and all those guys. So I'm not defending the Indianapolis Colts as a fan of the team as much as I am a fan of the sport. Wow. Just wow. Great job for Daniel Jones. Great opportunity for Daniel Jones. Now, I did look it up. They are playing the Rams and the LA Rams. So that's going to be interesting because although the Rams are kind of struggling, well, they're 3-0 too, I think, but their defense is hot right now. So with their defense being as hot as it is and Daniel Jones being as hot as he is right now, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be interesting football. And of course, the Steelers are playing in Minnesota. And so you would think, in my opinion, to the top of my head, they should just cream Minnesota. But the Steelers are the kind of people, they're the kind of team right now that they lose to the teams that they should win, and they win against the teams they should absolutely lose against. That'll be interesting to see. I think Minnesota's still needing a quarterback. I will say this, talking about quarterbacks in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I was not happy about the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, but I've got to give props to him right now. Now, obviously, he's not the future quarterback of the franchise. However, it was a good move. It was a good move. It was the move they intended when they got Russell Wilson. It was the move they intended when they got Justin Fields. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. It failed. And I was afraid that Aaron Rodgers would fail just as well. He has not. So far, He has not. They are not 3-0. I think they're 2-1. But the fact is, Aaron Rodgers has been showing up. Aaron Rodgers has been doing, and as long as he shows up, and this is what it is. This is why they did it, I believe, and it's because they needed a quarterback that can still put them in competition. And when you got Joe Burrow and all these other guys, somebody that while they're looking for their replacement, the next Ben Roethlisberger or Terry Bradshaw, while they're looking for that guy, which they should have got in 2016 when Ben was talking about retirement, but that's for another podcast. While they're looking for that guy, they can step this Aaron Rodgers can step in and keep us competitive. And that I think is smart football. That is truth over trend, and that's the way I think that they should work it. And okay, so I was saying great things, right? So great things happening in baseball as well. Listen, I'm not just a baseball fan. Okay, so I'm a big Yankees and Mets fan. Okay, my one of the two, I forget which. My mom was a big Yankees fan. My dad was a big Mets fan. So I liked them both, right? But here's the deal. On Wednesday night, Raleigh, I keep messing on that. Cal Raleigh stepped up to the plate, and oh my to the God, he crushed a home run and 38 feet into the upper deck at T-Mobile Park. Just absolutely crushed it. And that was number 59 for the season, right? And you would think 59, woo-wee, that's a good number. Not everybody makes 59. Not everybody gets there. That's a good number. But he didn't stop there. In the same game, he went higher. And not in distance, it didn't go as far, but in significance, because he hit number 60. And let me tell you, only 6 players in the history of baseball have ever reached 60 or more home runs. Babe Ruth, Roger Maris, Mark McGwire, Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge, Sammy Sosa. That's amazing. And I'm gonna put in the hot sauce here. I'm gonna give you the little kicker. None of those people I just mentioned were other than Cal Raleigh. I'm having a problem with that name. Other than Cal Raleigh, he's a catcher. No other catcher. Now, when you think of baseball, and if you know baseball, catchers usually aren't the ones making home run headlines. They're not the ones smacking the tar out of the ball. They're the grinders and they're the backbone. They're the ones who take the hits and make the calls for the pitches, and they carry the weight of the game sometimes. But listen, when you think of home run hitters, you hardly ever think of catchers. Now, they're good hitters, but they're usually not good home run hitters. And so Cal showed us something powerful and something we can take from, and that is that your position does not limit your potential. Let that sink in for a second. You might feel like you're in a role that's overlooked, or you might feel like your impact is quiet and behind the scenes, and maybe even underestimated, right? But just like Cal, you've got the power to go higher, to break records, to surprise the world with what's possible when you stay faithful, stay focused, and swing with the purpose. We get into this trend. We get into this norm or this exception of complaining at work and complaining about this and complaining about that. But listen, when we take a stand and we say, you know what, that's not going to be me. That's not going to be my identity. I'm not going to be that. I am going to go and I'm going to do what I came to do. No matter how much praise I get, no matter how much recognition I get, no matter who is getting the recognition instead of me or besides me. Because look, listen, this isn't just about baseball. It's about life. And if you've been around a couple of days, it's about life. It's about legacy. It's about what you leave behind, because I guarantee you, those kids, I say those kids, but anybody that was in that stadium, and it was in Seattle. So anybody that was in that, and they were shouting, oh man, it was glorious. They were shouting MVP. The guy has done just incredible work. And before then, has anybody really heard of Cal Raleigh? Really? No, because he's quiet. He just does his job. But I guarantee you this, those people that are there will be speaking about this for years. He has etched himself into the history books. leaving himself a legacy. And that's about it. It's about showing up. It's about doing the work and trusting that your breakthrough is coming. Even if you're not the one people expect to see it from. It's okay. It's all right because God sees it and God will reward it because God is faithful. So, my friend, I want to encourage you. Don't let your position define your calling. Don't let your past predict your future, okay? You were made to go higher. You were made to leave a mark. Listen, don't allow others to tell you your worth, all right? Now, I understand about taking advice and this and that, but don't let anyone tell you or take away or shorten, for lack of a better term, cut you short of your worth, okay? Because you're worth far more and you matter far more than anyone can ever imagine. And if you're wondering if this is biblical, where does it say in scripture? Listen, just look at David. And here's a shepherd boy, David, and turned into a king. Who would have thought? Who would have thought when they went to the David's dad Jesse, and they said, and he showed him all his other brothers, and then David last. Because they didn't see that from David. Or Peter. Peter's a shepherd. Peter's a fisherman. Peter denied Christ 3 times, saw Christ, repented, and then, my friend, had the biggest revival. 3,000 people got saved in one sitting, in one sermon. That's a game changer. Nobody would have put their money on that. And we can see throughout the whole Bible stories where God uses the unexpected and the highlighted, if you will, to do the extraordinary. So swing hard today, all right? I'm just saying, if you can get encouraged by anything else, be encouraged by this. Your number 60 moment might be closer than you think, all right? Now let's talk about another team that's been swinging with grit and grace, and this time it's on the basketball court. And of course, I'm talking about the Indiana Fever. Now listen, what do you think aside about Caitlin Clark? This is not just one person I'm talking about. This is a whole team that decided. Now, I believe, as a big Caitlin Clark fan, I believe it's because of Caitlin Clark that this team has. I mean, when you look at a team that has done absolutely nothing, and then in the last 2 years, they're starting to put things together. Now listen, I'm not saying that they had great talent, okay? They have great talent before Caitlin and before the switch, Stephanie White came. They had Aaliyah Boston. They had Nafisa Smith. They had Kelsey Mitchell. And so they had the talent, but nothing was happening. They weren't getting in the playoffs. They weren't getting into championships. They weren't winning championships. They were just there. They were just any other ordinary team. There was nothing sparked about the Indiana Fever since 2016. And listen, they're in the semifinals. That's the farthest they've gone since then. And they did it, listen to me, and I'm saying that a lot, they did it with a quarter of their bench injured, with a quarter of their bench not able. And I'm not just talking about water people or bench warmers. I'm talking about people like, I should have looked up her name, Beebe and Timpton and Cunningham and of course Clark. They're out. They're out, and they're still this team. And so I'm saying all that to say this team is more than just skill. This team has found something that's more important. And they found something more important than ego, more important than coverage, more important than MVP, more important than getting a name for themselves. They found teamwork. They found the truth over trend in teamwork. I'm telling you, you go to listen back to almost any media coverage or interview they do, and they talk about teamwork and the way they're coming together and the playfulness and the camaraderie. And I'm telling you, I've been in teams, not many athletic teams, but I have been on some, but I'm talking about teams in the military and teams in business. And I'm telling you, I know when I see a team working together for the same thing. And you'll hear this. You'll hear the naysayers and the skeptics say, "Well, they did it. They did it without Clark. They did it without Caitlin." But let's not miss the mechanics here, okay? Let's not miss what matters outside of the court. Caitlin Clark may not have been on the court, but she was in the fight. She was in the hustle. She was in the encouragement, and she fired that team up, just her being there. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I respect that. But you go back and watch. You watch the interviews and the energy, and that's what matters. See, because leadership isn't just found in stats. Leadership just isn't found in trophies and awards. It's about spirit, okay? You can tell, and you can tell, just look at the WNBA right now, who is not used to getting this kind of treatment, this kind of exposure, this kind of acknowledgement. And you can see the ones that are in it for themselves and the ones that are in it for the team. Because it's about showing up even when you're sidelined. And Caitlin did that. And so did Sophie. And so did BB. And so did Tipton. Sorry, I have to look up her name. They contributed in ways that don't show up on the scoreboard, but absolutely, listen, truth over trend, they absolutely show up in the soul of a team. So what does that mean? That means you don't have to be in the spotlight to make an impact. You don't have to be in the spotlight to make things happen. Sometimes your greatest contribution is just being part of that team because of your experience. Maybe they want you there, or they appreciate you there, and maybe because of just you, who you are. And listen, if you're a born again Christian and you're filled with the Spirit and you're bringing in positivity and encouragement and all this, listen, you may not have to make all the points, if you will. But just you being there matters. So that's all I got for today. I appreciate you coming by. So listen, whether you're swinging number 60 or showing up from the sidelines, protecting your freedom with humility, remember this. Your voice matters. Your voice, your presence matters. And your pursuit of truth over trend is part of a legacy we're building together, okay? Thanks for listening, friends. I'd really appreciate it. Please share if you like it or you want to listen to it more. Please subscribe and share with your friends, okay? Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts to myself out loud. I'll see you next time. God bless and be encouraged.